carbohydrates are not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like carbohydrates need to be earned
Right.
through mobility, through exercise, through moving your body. And then great, have the carbs you want to have. And then the kind of higher the intensity of the movement, the higher the glycemic index of the carbohydrate you could have. So just earn your carbs. You
Yeah.
know, if you want to have a lot of sugar, then move that body real fast, real hard,
Yeah.
and you can have it.
Yeah.
For those of us that, you know, are more sedentary or are certainly at least metabolically dysfunctional, that's where the ketogenic diet not only is going to be a way to lose weight, it's going to be turning the lights on.
Yeah.
When you do not get it, this is interesting. So, and really our brain can be in a state of type 3 diabetes, where it's resistant to taking glucose into those brain cells, the neurons. And so we're not making enough ATP. So again, that gets into that brain energy gap. And so what's happening is that we're getting more neuroinflammation. We're getting more neuroglycation, that blood sugar damage, and we're getting more neurooxidation. So there's damage happening to the brain. And by the way, this happens when you don't get enough sleep. This happens acutely on one bad night of sleep, that you become insulin resistant in your brain, which is why you're reaching for sugar or caffeine first thing in the morning, because you don't have enough energy. And if you do this chronically, you have a diabetic / Alzheimer's brain. And so if you're not getting enough sleep, that's a real problem for your energy. So that could be 10 shows right there for you, is just on sleep.
Yeah.
And I really recommend you talking to my friend Molly McLaughlin, now Molly Eastman. She has great podcasts. She's amazing on this. So she could do a great show with you. Anyway, so getting into the ketogenic,
top of the tree. Yes.
Yes. So exactly. And the ketogenic diet, what's happening there is that we're providing an alternate fuel source. So this is going to be, instead of this pathway that's resistant, that's worn down, that is not taking glucose into the cell well as that fuel source. Remember, we're dual fuel. We're metabolically flexible, or we should be, and we can take the ketones into the cell as well as a fuel source. So when we're not good at taking glucose into the cell because we're borderline diabetic, that is the way that we can provide that energy. And for some of us, that's like turning the lights back on.
Yeah.
You literally feel like, whoa, where'd this energy come from? You've gotten so used to that fatigue, that low energy, that low thermogenesis, where you're kind of metabolically dysfunctional, as we were talking about. Now it's like, hey, the lights are back on, where we have energy to do things. My brain is working great. My body is working great. You know, I'm now in a very different state because I'm making ATP, and I'm now not insufficient cellular energy state, and I'm not in brain energy gap mode.
Right.
I now have ketones to use as fuel. And then in time, you can get to be metabolically resilient and have like that kind of dual fuel scenario where you can just switch easily from glucose to ketones. And that's great. But, you know, if you're someone that's been dysfunctional for a while, then you need to potentially get into a more ketogenic diet for some time and maintain it. And then you can slowly work in carbohydrates and use them cyclically, which is, you know, for some people, I love the idea of doing it like on a Friday night to, you know, Saturday night or something. Like I just do 24 hours, 36 hours, and then the rest of the time I'm in ketosis. And then also targeted is something that you can work in time as well, which is like around a workout, and then things like that. So like in time, you can work those carbohydrates in, see what works well for your body. It's really good if you can use a glucometer, especially now you can get the CGMs, the continual
very
glucose.
popular.
Yeah, continual glucose monitor. So now you can actually see how some of these things affect you. There's actually a study, Rob Wolf has talked about this one study, and it's really excellent, where it looks at sucrose from cookies and fructose from bananas. And about half the population like had very little glycemic effect from the bananas, and about half the population had very little glycemic effect from the cookies. And like, so we actually, process these sugars, these carbohydrates very differently based on who we are. That's our whole bio individuality. So exploring that and understanding that to say, oh, maybe I could have a little of this, but I also know just a teeny bit of that will like throw me way off. To know those things is very important. To know how exercise affects you or caffeine affects you with relation to blood glucose is important as well.